Hello and welcome back to Up to Cinema podcast. Today we have an old friend back, and we're going to be talking about Arrival. So we're here again with Pete from Middle Class Film Class,
Hello.
and we're going to talk about Arrival. I know you love it.
Oh yeah, I love just about everything that Denny's done.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it because I don't have a great experience with any. I don't love Blade Runner, and I really don't like Dune. And those are the two I'd
Mm.
seen, so I kind of avoided other movies, but I like this one.
Okay, okay, cool. Have you is that the extent of your catalog from Villeneuve?
Yeah, now it's three movies,
Just
which
the
I know
three.
it's not
Okay.
fair to judge a director
Mm,
on three movies.
That's fine. You're one out of three for him. Blade Runner, I think, is
Blade Runner's okay.
yeah, like if it the story itself is, I think has a lot of like, in my opinion, is has a step up from the original, and the visuals definitely have a step up from the original. Um, but I can see why people may not like really latch onto it because it
Mhm.
takes it's asking a lot of you, I think. But
Yeah.
and you're definitely not in the minority with Dune. I think most people, well, maybe you're slightly in the minority, but I know a fair amount of my movie friends are like, yeah, it's all flash and no story, no substance. But I freaking absolutely love Dune. I've probably seen it 5 times.
I feel like I just got lost. I didn't know what was happening. I don't know the lore. But everyone seems to love Denny for one movie or another.
Mhm.
He has a movie for everyone. And this might be ours. You liked it a lot too.
yeah, I really enjoyed this. I mean, I like I said before we started recording, I've had seen parts of this. This is one of my previous roommates and friends' favorite film
Oh, okay.
because she's a linguistics major, like she has a degree
Ooh,
in linguistics. So
nice.
the idea behind Amy Adams' character being able to communicate with a
Yeah.
alien species through language was like really appealing to her.
That's her like literally me character. Because she's
Yeah.
into linguistics. She works for NASA.
Yeah, she works for NASA now,
So
not doing anything
Whoa,
in
cool.
linguistics, but
so it
like
seems like literally me. I'm Amy Adams right now.
yeah, it is a
That's
literally
super funny.
movie for her.
How perfect is that?
Yeah, it really is like knowing her, this is like her perfect film. So she watches it a ton. So when we lived together, I would like catch clips here and there and I'd stick around for a few minutes, but then I'd be doing something else. So I
Mhm.
never got to see the full product until now.
I kind of didn't really look into it until we were going to do an episode about it. I just know the director's not my favorite, and we have the movie, like we own it, but I just never grabbed it to put it on because I knew I'd do it eventually. But once it started, I was like, oh, this is a really cool, unique take on a sci-fi movie where it's about language.
Mhm.
I really like that. I thought that was like a really nice perspective into film, and it's something I guess people don't think about when there's an alien invasion. They think about the military, the people freaking out, the society downfall, but they don't think about trying to communicate with them and how that would go about.
Yeah, I like the little scenes where are very realistic, where she's trying to convince the military personnel why she needs to use rudimentary word techniques just to determine whether or not they can ask a question. Why are you here? And breaking that down into what probably your roommate may have probably looked at and go, well, that's not exactly true. But to me, the layperson, I was like, oh yeah, I guess that does make sense. If you can't just huck a bunch of words at somebody that their language doesn't even understand questions, a question may not even be a bridge too far or whatever.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
like that, and I like the fact that it's an alien invasion movie where there's no action, like
Yeah.
there's no a little bit of gunfire, but really none that's like present and a major part of the plot and the characters' decision making. It's really like it's more of a realistic like standoff, like a Cold War sort of thing,
Yeah.
and
I also
that's
like
that's
that
great.
about it. Yeah, where it's not so in your face all the time, but I think at least in terms of what my very limited knowledge on linguistics, because we did talk about, our schoolwork or
Oh, cool.
whatever. But I think she said that this does a pretty accurate job of how you would kind of break down language and how you would start building on the basics. So, I mean, I think they did put a lot of effort and thought into making sure that this made sense scientifically and linguistically. So that's pretty cool that they really
Yeah, I think
focused on that.
the detail of it is really cool. And it's not like you're learning. It's not an educational film, but it is interesting the small things they think about that you wouldn't think about, but they make a lot of sense when she explains them.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know there's civilizations that have a bunch of words for snow,
Mm-hmm.
or like there's tribes in Africa that don't have communication with the outside world, and colors work different for them, where
Yeah.
they can distinguish a lot of different greens because they have to talk about certain trees, certain bushes. So the colors to them, they see them differently because of how they talk. And in this, we see, the questions as you brought up. We don't even know if their race has questions.
Yeah.
They're from another planet,
Mhm.
so questions might not even make sense. They see time different from us, so why wouldn't they see language different from us?
Yeah, there's an interesting concept that they postulate in there where depending on the language that you speak and your mind starts interpreting things in,
Yeah,
that changes your entire outlook on the world and how your mind maps itself, which I think there's got to be some truth to that because you have people who are born deaf or born blind who their brain function is in a completely different realm than ours are, completely fully abled person. And I'd imagine when you're, I don't know if it's necessarily a language thing. It probably is, but I know a lot of it's like an environmental thing, like you said. There are cultures that don't recognize a lot of cultures that don't recognize the color blue in their language structure because blue is a color that doesn't really occur very often in nature. We think,
Yeah.
well, the sky's blue, but in all reality, it's closer to white, or black, or different colors. And ocean is not always blue, depending on the part of the world you're in.
Yeah.
So I think that the idea that as soon as she starts really 100% feeling the time-based language that they're speaking in, her mind starts to experience the time looping as well, which is like that's just blows my mind out.
Yeah.
And the way that the story is told is so interesting because they tell you the story about the loss of the daughter at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and then it doesn't even tell you that it's a time jump back to before all that, and you think she's having experiencing memories until the first time you hear her say, I don't understand, who's this little girl? And you're like, what
Yeah.
the
And that's like kind
hell
of
is
towards the
happening?
end. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, what is happening? Um, and I rewatched this with my girlfriend. She'd only seen it one time before this, but it was at release year. This is probably my fourth viewing, and when we were kind of talking throughout the movie, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I hate how this some things happen when grief is present in your life, and something mundane reminds you of something of this person you lost, and you may not want to experience it. And it's like a memory forcing itself into your brain." And I just kind of had to shut my mouth because I was like, I don't think she completely forgot that she hasn't even experienced that yet. The character hasn't experienced it yet.
Yeah.
mm.
It's such a layered. The stories really rewards that repeat viewing too. I think.
In our
Yeah.
time frame, she hasn't experienced it yet, but in
Yeah.
the way she's thinking, it's all happening at once. So it's even harder to comprehend because it's not a flashback and it's not a flash for it. It's just in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's kind of experiencing those moments, as they're happening too, kind of in a way. Because, I like how this movie, as she's learning the language, she starts to she starts seeing more and more of these flashbacks, but then we're also understanding the language as she's learning the language. So then by the end where she like kind of completely knows the language, it
Mhm.
gives us the subtitles of the language instead of just like flashing the little
Symbol.
circle, yeah, circle symbol
Hmm.
thing. I like how it progresses like that.
Yeah, I like the creation of the language itself. It looks so unique.
Mhm.
It, they didn't go with, when you think of aliens, you think of just they're kind of like our alphabet but different, and they look funky. We don't recognize them, but this is a whole new way of
Yeah.
communicating. A sentence is a one symbol, like a whole sentence is one symbol,
Yeah.
and it's just really cool. And they
And
actually made it kind of function in real life.
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah,
It's
the
really
once you get the little peek into the app that she uses to build the words that sends out to the aliens, you're like, oh, she's building this phrase and this phrase here, and then it creates the circle together, and then she projects it out to him. And you're like, wow, they really put a lot of thought into this, making it seem like something that could actually happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's different from like other alien languages. Like I can think of Klingon where like you can as a person learn Klingon if
Mm,
you
Sure.
wanted to.
Yeah.
Where like this they're the heptapods, I think that's what they're called, right?
Yeah.
Heptapods.
mhm.
Their language we would never be able to speak because the sounds that come out of their orifice, whatever it
Yeah.
is,
Whatever it is, their
you know,
big ass head.
yeah, they don't, we would never be able to create those sounds.
Mhm.
So we have to learn it in a different way. And that's the written
Yeah,
version of it. That's the only way that we can learn it.
which is the first one to figure out
Yeah.
because they go up there trying to talk, and immediately we see like the gravity is different inside of the ship, and that's already like really cool and really tense.
Mm-hmm.
The point when it shifts.
Mm-hmm. Where they throw something, I don't remember what it was, but
That's
they
a
throw it up.
like a glow stick.
Yeah.
Something,
Yeah.
yeah. They throw it up, and then it sticks to the wall, and it's like, yeah, that just happened, which is a little lame. The line is a little lame, but the what happens is cool and like
Yeah.
thrilling.
Yeah.
I really,
It,
I really like this from the sci-fi perspective.
yeah.
I think they did everything scientifically correctly in a way that's really interesting and not too complicated. The way that like Christopher Nolan sometimes does it overcomplicated,
Mhm.
where it just confuses you, and that's kind
Yeah.
of the point. This is not hard to follow. It's pretty straightforward when you think about it. At least I think so. I wasn't very confused at any point.
I think you're right. I think if Nolan were to direct this, he would have tried to explain how like the like energy drive works in the ships and how
Mm-hmm.
they're able to produce, move around without producing any like exhaust or anything.
Yeah.
He would have
How they're
this
able to
whole
communicate.
yeah, this whole thing about oh yeah, this and this and this is how they communicate and this is where their mouth is and you don't need all that with Villeneuve. He just it'll show like a up close of the creature's head when she's in the room and you can see it kind of pulsing a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm,
we don't even show them even having a mouth ever,
yeah, it's part
Yeah.
of the mystery too.
Yeah.
It goes to like the shape of the ship being just kind of an egg that
Yeah.
is not very
Like a
defined.
yeah. A toenail got clipping.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
It,
like the design of the spaceship because it does look menacing, but there's nothing to it. It's smooth from
mhm.
what we can tell, but it looks menacing
Yeah, because it's so
and
mysterious. Because
yeah,
we don't
mysterious.
recognize it as something that would function,
Mm-hmm.
and the scientists in the military don't recognize it as something that functions because it doesn't emit anything. It doesn't make sound. It doesn't affect the air. It just kind of sits there menacingly,
Yeah.
looking scary. Which we don't know why it's scary. The same reason we don't know why babies are cute. They're just cute.
Right.
It's scary because we have no idea what they're capable of, I think.
Yeah.
And credit to the filmmakers and cinematographer or whoever made this decision, but the first time you get the full on view of this thing, it's not like when you see in like the new Star Wars movies, you see a new ship and it's like fully lit
Mm-hmm.
from a full like a 3/4 view. It's almost like a 3D rendering if you were to try to sell somebody that ship. Where this one, it's this morning dew. The fog is coming over this little hillside right next to it, and it's this like push in shot from a helicopter, and you only see the dark side of it as the helicopter moves around slowly and naturally. The light starts to shine on it, and you see the other side of it, and it's like it's something natural that actually feels like it's there rather than a
Mhm.
computer image that you're just looking at and going, "Oh, that's a cool ship."
Yeah.
That's how I feel like um, why Dune felt so lived in that universe was because
Mm.
there are whole giant ships that you only see the bottom of. With when they have the Reverend Mother or whoever her name is lands on the wet planet and it's dark and it's coming in. It's you just see the bottom of that big orb ship with the lights coming down on it, and you're like, there's
Yeah.
probably a whole lot of CGI hidden behind here and obscured behind trees, but in the natural world, you don't always get the full view of it, of that car or that spaceship or whatever. So it seemed so real, this arrival ship.
That's like the emptiness of Montana,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
just they didn't overdo the interior of the ship at all. Like it was empty. There's something separating them from us or from the characters, but that was it. It was just a room with nothing
Yeah.
in it, so they could communicate. And we don't know how they live or anything like that. We discover how they see time and language further into the movie, but not much else. Not
Yeah.
anything about their technology or their planet or how the ship works.
Yeah.
Just
And
kind of empty in a good way.
yeah. And we only know that they need humanity's help in 3,000 years into like
Mm.
this linear timeline.
Mhm.
And they, came here specifically to get us to like humanity to work together.
Yeah, they're helping us save ourselves by working together.
Mm-hmm.
So we can help them.
So that
Yeah.
we can help them. Yeah.
And we don't need to know why, but they need our help. But maybe
It
that's,
doesn't matter. We'd all be
yeah,
dead.
yeah, we'll all be dead. But that adds to the dread of it too, because you're
Mhm.
like, man, these people are playing 5D chess.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm just thinking about what I'm going to have for lunch tomorrow, and they're thinking about their impending doom in 3,000 years and what civilizations and other planets can save them.
Yeah. And I've seen like that kind of brings up the criticism that I've seen for this movie is that they feel like people feel like there's no consequence after this or in this movie because the aliens know that they're going to be fine in 3,000 years because they're going to have the humans help, and this is the starting point, so they feel like there's no consequence to the movie or there's no like free will. They're just kind of doing what they know is going to happen since
Mhm.
they are experiencing time at all at once.
But the movie's not about the aliens.
No, but I also feel like the criticism doesn't take into account that the way that like they're experiencing time isn't even like they see into the future. It's like they're experiencing whatever present they're in
Yep.
and they're experiencing the future at the same time. It's not like they have a blueprint of how things are going to work out. They know it will work out kind of, but they still have to figure it out in that moment how to
Mhm.
achieve the goals that they need to.
Yeah, it's something we can't understand in our minds, but it makes sense to them.
Yeah.
That criticism right there is so funny because that like accidentally falls ass backwards into one of the greatest like what's the like philosophy questions. Is
Mhm.
there free will? Is free will a real thing? You can say all you want. And me and Brianna had this mini conversation after we finished the movie that she said, there's no way I would have that baby. I
That's what
wouldn't.
he said too.
Yeah. And there's no way she says there's no way. And I had to stop and think about it. And I'm like, well, I don't think I would either, but I don't know if I have a choice in that matter.
Mm.
If
Yeah.
it's already been seen and it's already says it's going to happen, do you just accept the fact that that is your future no matter what? Or do you have the free will, just like in, I don't know, Looper or something, to change the future? And then what does that look like?
Yeah, I've also kind of thought about that too in terms of like could she have said
Yeah.
no when he asked if they wanted to make a baby? But I think that in that moment she's living that at that point and experiencing like the hug from him after because she's experiencing this hug with him that she kind of remembers being held by him before, and that feels great. So when she's experiencing him asking for them to start a family at the same time, those emotions are still there and she says yes, even though she
Yeah,
like in the back of her mind she knows like her child is going to die.
but
But I
it's
think in that moment she's not really necessarily thinking about that. She's
mm,
just thinking
Mhm.
about how she feels in that second, I
I
guess.
think it's about how she feels, but it's because it's not really the future. It's happening now.
Mm-hmm.
So she knows all the good feelings that she had, and she knows all the good things that happened because of it, and she doesn't want to lose those,
Yeah.
regardless of the bad ones. But at the same time, it's happening now, so it's not really the future for her
Yeah.
because that's not how she experiences it anymore.
Yeah.
What I guess that's really putting a test to the phrase, it's better to have loved than lost and never loved at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it when it's your child that's dying
Yeah.
from
And
incurable
My
disease?
point wouldn't even be the love, it's the suffering that you're willing to let this child
That's-
go through.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
But it's not really the future. That's kind of my point. It's
Yeah.
happening now. So it's not like she's gonna let the child go through it again. The child already went through it.
Yeah, I guess.
Did,
But
did she?
I don't know.
In her mind
In
and the
your
way
mind.
it works.
It's your mind she did.
I-
Yeah, it's
I
that's
think
what makes this such a great conversation piece when you think about it.
But I think it's Jeremy Renner's character, or she asked Jeremy Renner's character if he could see his entire life
Yeah.
all at once, would he change anything?
Yeah.
And I think that anybody that gets asked that question, if they really thought, like, if they thought about it in the sense that they don't actually know how their life is going to plan out, I think that anybody in the current moment that they're asked that question would say that they'd probably make the same choices pretty much. Because at the end of the day, your life is your life.
Hmm.
You may have some regrets. You may have wanted to
Yeah.
explore other things, but then you wouldn't, have the things that you have now.
There's a lot of things we've done in the past that in the time we do them is like, damn, this sucks. But then it results in something better down the line or something different down the line. So changing something is not always the answer. And that's
Yeah.
part of why, the time travel code tells you not to touch anything in the past.
Sure, it's about time, the about time thing where he goes back in time to before his child was born
Mm-hmm.
and relives it, and now the child is different. The
Yeah, it's a
child
different
is
child.
it was a boy, now it's a girl, or it was a boy, now it's a different boy. And the dad says, "Oh yeah, it's there's a million sperm in there.
Yeah.
Never gonna be the same one twice."
Yeah,
And like,
exactly.
yeah, do like if you know what your future is already, maybe you will have a temptation to meddle with things. But I'm with you on this one. I don't think that you should go back and change anything. But if I don't know, if I knew that my actions would cause the suffering of my little girl, maybe that would be something I would get a vasectomy before I met the
I
the
mean, maybe.
mother of my kids.
But I think it's like thinking like you're seeing, I don't know, because it really is like she's not experiencing time like we think about it at this
Like a
point
deja
too.
vu sort of thing.
Yeah, so it's kind of like she's always constantly like in the moment kind of. So at
Hmm.
any point in her life, if you get asked that question, would you change anything? The answer is no.
Probably no, yeah.
So like I don't know.
Yeah, he
It's
introduces
crazy.
a really hard way of seeing her time.
Hmm.
Because what we're seeing, if we think about it as the past, then we think of it differently.
Yeah.
But if you think about that as the present and the flashbacks as the future, it's a different perspective.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to look at it, but none of them really are going to make sense to us because we're not heptapods.
Yeah. We don't know the language.
And what's really fun too is that I'm pretty sure this is a universal thing, but there are times when you'll be experiencing a day and you're like, I swear to God, I've lived this day before. It's not just deja vu; it's something bigger than that, Or like you have a dream, and in the dream, you like reveal information to yourself about something that you don't know or you don't think you know, and
Yeah.
then it comes to fruition sometime later, and you're like, how did I had to have known that before that because it's my dream. I'm the one that made the dream.
Yeah.
And just that weird, like, I can't put my finger on it feeling on the tip of your brain is just enough to where I felt so like plugged into this whole time loop aspect and memories that maybe are not actually memories. Maybe they're things that have happened in the future. It's like, I don't necessarily believe in all that, but I think there's probably enough unknown about our universe and our brains that maybe there is something there.
Yeah, I get that feeling, but it's more of like the nostalgic feelings where for some reason, as of late, if I listen to a song that I listened to in like high school, it's not like I'll remember exactly what I was doing, but I'll remember the feelings and like the
Or
different, like, I don't know. It is mostly feelings, all the feelings that I felt, back then.
yeah,
And it's kind of like a deja vu moment, but it's more of just like,
almost like you're transported in that moment at
yeah,
that time.
yeah.
Feels good though when that happens.
Yeah, sometimes it feels good.
Sometimes you're like, I
Sometimes
remember that asshole. No.
sometimes you're just like cringing at yourself and it's like, oh, I said something or I did something,
Yeah,
then it's like,
I feel like it's
no.
mostly that for me. I remember moments that I
That's funny.
cringe at.
Yeah.
What was the other thing I was going to tell you? Oh, the only thing that I really appreciate about this on repeat viewings is that the whole plot itself, it could have been easily been shoehorned a romance story into it. And it's like the romance that blossoms at the end of the story is only a byproduct of the events that they've been through together.
Yeah.
But they don't necessarily like bounce it off of each other throughout the whole story. They are there for each other in a supportive way, but it's not like, well, I can't do this because then he's not going to be there, or I got to protect her or whatever. It's very much they're two people living their own lives, and then after all this stress or trauma or whatever you want to call it, and it's all kind of deep breath is done, that's when he says his cheesy line, which is a great line. You know, I
Yeah.
I my life changed not when I met them, but when I met you, or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. It is a little cheesy,
Yeah,
but
I still think it's a pretty obvious romance,
well, yeah,
and you
but
see it coming. And I don't know if it needs a romance.
sure.
Like, we don't need to know who the father of the child is for the story to be exactly the same.
I think that it him being the father kind of does, I don't know, because at the point where the daughter is like, dad doesn't look at me the same way since he left, or it's different now, because that's after Amy Adams told him that their daughter is going to die and she knew about
Yeah,
it.
that's why he left her, because
Yeah,
he's upset that she knew and still did it.
I think that kind of like, even though he has kind of learned the language, he's not experiencing time the same way that she is too.
And knowing him makes it easier for you as a viewer to uh, think of Jeremy Renner being sad instead of a nameless, man being sad. And as obvious it is that they're going to get together at some point, we don't have any wasted time during the bulk of
No,
the
that's
movie
true.
watching them fawn over each other and have weepy conversations at sunset right before they go up into the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no wasted time with romance, because it's not a romantic film and it shouldn't be.
Until it turns into, okay, now this is the byproduct of their love and the child, and it's all like basically the bow on the end of the story that makes it more of an interesting thing than just an alien invasion.
Hmm. Yeah, because I said it earlier, but I don't think the movie's about the aliens. Because if it was, we'd see a lot more of them
Hmm.
and a lot less of Amy Adams. But I think it's about civilization and her towards the end learning and changing. But the whole world changes and learns to work together, which was the purpose of the aliens. Because what I get from it is that they don't think we'd last 3,000 years if we didn't change
Yeah,
and learn how to work with each other. So I think that's the real purpose of the movie, and it's not an alien invasion movie as much as it is
Yeah.
sure.
about people changing.
Yeah. And I kind of like the way that they bring people together is this shared language of this alien species, where I don't know where I heard it before, but I've heard that, language is kind of what brings people together. It kind of
Sure.
makes people relate to each other in a way. So not only are we now have this kind of language that makes us experience how these aliens that come, how they experience life, and we get a shared communication with them, but like it also allowed the rest of the world to kind of communicate with each other as well, potentially through this language, or whoever decides to learn it.
Yeah,
I would assume it'd be hard to learn.
Yeah, yeah.
I
You
had
see,
nothing.
it is funny that the she finally unlocks the key to understanding the language, the written language, by experiencing a memory that she hasn't even lived yet.
Yeah.
Her teaching that language to her students some years in the future after she's published her book, and she's almost like looking into those forward memories and being like, let me just read the book that I wrote that I haven't written yet. And it's like
Yeah.
all that, and then the on top of it, the commander of the general of the Chinese forces giving her his phone number after she's already called him on the phone. You're like,
Mhm.
that's I love it. I love time travel stuff in general. So when there was that aspect thrown into this movie, I was like, ooh, yes, so good.
It does get like, I don't know. I think when I was just watching snippets of it, I do remember seeing that scene where the general is telling her his number, where she doesn't know it in the future, but she knows it in the past. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But like watching it as a whole, you kind of understand that it's not future and past.
It's not, yeah, it's non-linear.
Yeah, she's experiencing them at the same time. So it's not like she would know the number in
Hmm.
the quote unquote future. She doesn't know it in both of those
Mm.
instances. She might know it in other instances, but it's like we said, it's
Right.
non-linear.
But it also brings that scene where she's trying to call him and it's like really dragged out and they're gonna kill her and all. But we know she's gonna call him because
Yeah.
we've seen it.
Mm,
And I think that takes away a little bit of the
suspense.
tension
I thought
towards
he
the
was
end.
going to get shot. I thought that was what's going to happen the first time I watched
Yeah,
it.
it could have
Like, I
been.
know she's going to live, but then he puts himself in front of the door, and I'm like, oh god, no, he's dead.
Yeah.
Um,
But I mean, knowing that he would be the father, I don't know. I feel like the tension gets a little lost towards the end. I think there's a lot of like Hollywoodisms,
hmm.
the military element, the international tensions with Russia and China feel very Hollywood. They're very like go to like who are the bad guys? Oh, it's China and Russia. I understand why historically they're the bad guys, but I don't know. It feels a little Hollywood to me towards that, and then it loses tension. I don't know how I would do it better. I don't have a solution to solve it, but it does take me away a little.
Mm.
I think also that final bit that it's China that's about to launch attack on the aliens, and they're like, well, this country and this country and this country are going to follow suit, and now the Russians say they're going to do it, and now India says they're going to do it or whatever. It's kind of like, what's the message here that the aliens are saving us from? One asshole is enough to ruin the planet for everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
it kind of that message doesn't it's kind of gets lost in the muck and all the fantasy of it all, but it is
becomes a little
unfortunate.
like the US is the best. Like it does do that because it's an American saving the day and they have to save it from the foreigners because the foreigners are gonna ruin it.
Yeah, but they also like one of the reasons why they're in the situation altogether is because of the American soldiers that kind of went rogue
Right, but they're the
and
little
exploded,
assholes.
you
Like the
know?
big assholes are China and Russia.
Yeah, that's true. But I feel like since the small assholes as you're going to label them, they're the reason why everyone's scared of retaliation,
Hmm.
you know? Like if they hadn't done that, then where would we be? We'd probably still be a standstill potentially, but with the added height that since somebody blew up, the interior of the spaceship, then we got to be worried that they're gonna retaliate. So we got to get on top of them and retaliate even quicker than they can. I don't know.
Sure.
I think ultimately it's not USA good or China bad or whatever. It's woman good, man bad.
That's also
It's
true.
probably
Could
the
be.
That makes
message
more
is.
sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were
Women are gonna
we
save
were
the
talking
world.
we were talking about whether Alex Garland and Denis Villeneuve had ever met before, and if they ever made a collaboration project, how great would that be?
They
There's
just
a lot
have
of strong female characters in both of their works.
yeah, just an unstoppable girl boss.
Yeah, the Amy
Yeah.
character is really good. She's
Huh?
the Amy Adams character
Yeah,
is
Amy
really
Adams.
good,
Yeah,
and she's just so smart to a point where it's like, oh, I could never do that. Like the way that she tries to understand language, I would immediately give up
Oh yeah,
because there's just so much.
the linguistics homework that they make them do, at least at the University of Georgia, was I would have no.
Yeah.
My brain doesn't work like that. They'd have to like break down words into like syllables and then meanings behind the syllables and just the sentence. You had to do all the sentence structure and understand why
And that's
certain
college
words.
students.
Yeah.
She's like top of her field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So she's even smarter than that. She's the one that writes these exercises for students. So she's just another level of smart. And it's like, I could never comprehend her. And it makes sense by the end. You're now like, oh, she just understands the language and now has this power of seeing the future. No, you understand why it's her. And I,
Yeah.
I just really like her. Her performance is great too. Very convincing.
it is nice to see somebody who's considered a very attractive actress too. In her younger age very gracefully. Like, it doesn't look like she's got a bunch of Botox and plastic surgery.
Mm.
Like, she could have gone the route of Nicole Kidman. She's not nearly as old as Nicole Kidman yet, but just seeing these up close shots of her. Oh, the fantastic scene when she gets on the other side of the glass.
Mm-hmm.
Send the little pod down. They pick her up, and she's face to face with Abbott. And gosh, that's so cool. Just being inside that room with them and seeing how tall it actually is and how big that your squid heptapods are, and its
Mm-hmm.
creature designs something else. Really something else. I
Yeah,
love it.
they don't make it over the top, I would say,
Mhm.
with the creature design. It does look intimidating, but it's not necessarily scary, and it's definitely not scary once you kind of she has a relationship
Yeah,
with
they're very
these
friendly.
creatures,
Yeah.
you
Their
know?
names are Abbott and Costello.
Yeah.
They are friendly.
Well, that plus when you see like their actual hand or whatever there,
Mm.
it looks almost like Knuckles, or
Yeah.
or what we were also thinking is almost like 5 or 6 elephant heads with the trunk in a
Mhm.
row in a little circle, and
Yeah.
it just looks very lived, very like alive, which is sometimes alien creatures they just like okay they're slimy, oh okay they're spiky. It just looks like a living thing,
Yeah.
a
A
squid
lot
but
of times they go for humanoids and then they change their skin or their head shape. But this is like something we would never understand. Looks kind of like a root from a big tree or
yeah
just
kind of.
a random form. Of course, to them, it's probably not random. There's reasons for everything.
Yeah, they probably did put some considerable thought behind the design.
Of the two, if I had to pick two creatures in this on our planet Earth that actually might be aliens in real life, I'd say octopus, or and second would be fungus.
Hmm.
So much harder to get an alien feature about fungus that doesn't seem like they're just going to take over the world because that's what they do, spread.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
also see in the movie they're aliens, whatever. They come to our planet and they see humans, but they also see a bird because they take a bird like they
Mhm.
would into like a minor cave
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, the canary in the
to
cage.
test it.
Yeah.
But there's other alien creatures from the same place that this alien creature comes from. They can't,
Presumably.
maybe, probably from what we know, from our experiences.
Yeah, there's a thousands, hundreds of
So
thousands of
yeah,
species on our planet.
it doesn't make sense that all aliens would be humanoids and everything that comes from that planet would be humanoid when here we have thousands of different shapes to
Yeah.
living things. A tree is living, so is a human and a canary. So it's I like that it's like a shape that we don't recognize instead of, a gray guy with big eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had enough of those. They're creepy anyways. I don't like those.
I have one
No.
right here on my computer.
Yeah.
No.
They're kind of like the what is it called? Like the uncanny valley type thing where if
Mm,
the
Mhm.
more it starts to look like a human, but it's not a human, the more creeped out you get.
yeah.
Yeah.
Creepy. Don't like
I don't know.
it.
But I
Uh,
like this.
Yeah, I like this. I was a little worried I wouldn't like it. In a lot of scenes I was worried like when they revealed the aliens that it would be,
Hokey.
yeah, like goofy. I still think there's a lot of Hollywood behind it, which kind of takes me away from the parts I liked. I like the first half more than the second half.
mhm,
The second half is where we get all the reward of understanding everything
mhm.
we've been going through.
And the existential threat of world
Hmm.
ending, supposedly, which we don't even know if they have the ability to attack humans.
That's true. Because they're kind of behind a glass that they
Hmm.
seemingly can't get behind, or like
And the
to
glass is there
us.
for a reason. I don't know if like because we see like the mist where
Yeah.
they're so they might need that to breathe or to exist.
Yeah. There's a lot
Sure,
of
they
questions.
yeah, they probably know enough about us to know that we can't 100% subside in their atmosphere that they're in forever. So they put that glass up so we can communicate,
Mhm.
and also they can stay in that little misty village that they have in there, that mysterious
It also
mist.
creates a great element of separation in the beginning where they're just wearing so much gear and they're scared and it's just really great. I really like that room. I really like the computers in the room and how even in the background you're already seeing things on the screen.
Yeah,
Even when like they walk away from the computer doesn't stop doing its thing. It keeps doing random things that maybe don't make a lot of sense, but they would be happening.
Yeah.
yeah.
I like a lot of elements about it, but I think I like the idea of the movie more than the movie itself.
Mm.
I gave it a 7 out of 10 to put it into perspective. I think the idea of the movie is really good. Thinking about it makes me really like it. But then watching it, there's a lot of things that kind of break the pacing for me or the immersion. I don't really like military movies too much, so that's probably me. Feels a little too Americanized at points, which I never like personally. I don't really watch a lot of Hollywood movies in my free time for a reason, and those reasons kind of show up at the end here. It doesn't ruin the movie at all. I still like it a lot, and I would watch it again tomorrow. But yeah, I guess that's all I have to say.
If you don't like Hollywoodized movies, but you want to give another Denny project a look, check out Incendies.
Yeah, that's the one I've been looking at.
Woo! Woo!
I'm
That
gonna watch
story.
all of his films.
Story is fantastic in that. It's a story unlike anything I've ever seen before. So and it has the way that the story is told to you as the viewer is similar to this, where you get enough of it, and about halfway through the movie, you think, "Oh, okay, I think I know where this story is going, and I think I see what the character is going to discover." And then when it gets to the very end, it kind of reveals even more, and then the movie's over, and you're like, "Whoa, shit! I want to watch that again." So that's a good one. Tough subject matter, but very, very good.
I
And
always looked at Incendies as his like indie darling that like a lot of people bring up as their favorite because they don't like the sci-fi ones, but they love this one. I'm gonna watch all
yeah,
of those movies eventually. Like,
good. If you're gonna go anywhere, knowing your sensibilities, I'd say Incendies. It's depressing, so I don't want to say that's my favorite by any stretch of the imagination. But like, I mean, even if you want an Americanized version, Sicario is great, but that's not my type of movie. I don't really gravitate towards that one. Prisoners is fantastic, and that's a hard watch too. But I mean, I don't know. It's all he's got, like you said, he's got a flavor for every different taste.
yeah, he does. Everyone has a favorite one of his, and the consensus is that he's good, which I can't disagree with. I don't think any of his movies is terrible. Blade Runner is okay. I like the original more. I think it has more personality. I think Dune is fine for what it is. I just don't understand it. It's not for me.
Oh, it's so good. You have no, it's so good. It's like you're there, man.
Well, for this movie, I gave it an 8 out of 10. I do like the story. I think the story really does more for me than anything else that has to do with the movie. I do think I kind of get what you're saying, where it does have elements of like a Hollywood film, but I don't necessarily think that that is wrong in any way. And I think that in order to be as successful as it was, because I think it was pretty successful
Yeah.
when it came out, like it wasn't like a flop or anything, like people went out and saw this. So I think in order to get that kind of crowd, it kind of needed to be a little bit Hollywood. But yeah, I really like I really like how they use language. I've always been fascinated by language, even though I don't think I have the capacity to understand how language is created or how we use it specifically. But yeah, I enjoyed it. So 8 out of 10.
I'd probably have to say, whew, it's tough. I usually use the five-star rating, and this is a 5-star movie for me. So I don't know. Is that 10 out of 10?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I'd say if I were to break it down to that, even I guess 9 would be 4.5 stars. So it's got to be a 10. I love it. It's so good. I'm a little bit less critical on most movies than most people. Like my highest number of ranking on Letterboxd is 4 stars. Like I give more 4 stars than any other ranking on Letterboxd. Then again, I'm going into movies that I know I'm probably gonna like.
Yeah.
And I'm not a type of person where I'm like, oh, we should binge watch this whole series of shitty movies. Oh, it's gonna be so great. I try to avoid that. My time is valuable. So but yeah, this is a 5-star movie. 10 out of 10. Love it.
I guess that's all. If anyone else has anything else to add.
I have something to add. Listeners, if you're listening to this and you have not seen Arrival, what the hell are you doing listening to this show, by the way? All these spoilers we've given.
I know.
So rewind it, erase it from your circular memory, and go watch it again.
Yeah.
And if you want a movie podcast to listen to that is a little slightly different, listen to my show with Joseph and Tyler. It's called Middle Class Film Class. We record it live. It's like a radio show. All the sound drops are added live. We do almost no editing unless somebody knocks on the front door and the dogs start barking. We'll cut that out. But for the most part, it's fun segments every Monday. It's news and review, recommendations, streaming recommendations. And then every Wednesday is a deep dive movie review, which we have done. We've done we did Incendies and we did Enemy. I think those are and we did Blade Runner 2049. So we've done 3 Denny movies on the show. And Joseph's a big fan of his. When he works with some really fantastic cinematographers like Deakins on Blade Runner 2049. So, but yeah, give it a good shot. Give it a shot if you want to listen to something fun and funny. It's middle class film class.
Yes, I forgot to add that earlier. You'll listen to it. Oh, well, the
Okay.
links will be in the description. So will be the links to our merch. So if you want to buy a brand new T-shirt, Walk the Cinema has those.
I may be on that. I may be on that right after this. I need some new T-shirts.
But I think that's all we have. So we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.